Cavin Elizabeth, a wedding photographer based in San Diego, as well as a bridal boutique owner, and today I'm going to be talking about 5 different trends that I would love to see for 2021 weddings. First off, this only applies to weddings that are happening when weddings can happen safely. I do not think that right now is a good time for weddings if you can't have every single person tested and quarantined and stick with maybe immediate family and a few friends and keep it all outside. If you are having indoor weddings or weddings with hundreds of people right now, I don't really think that's a safe thing. You can go watch my COVID video. I think it's much better to just postpone to when there are no restrictions, no things that you have to do, no compromises or anything related to COVID. So essentially these trends are things that I want to see when weddings can happen after they're safe. So hopefully when the majority of Americans are vaccinated. The first trend that I would love to see is smaller weddings, and not just because of COVID or restrictions, but because of smaller weddings in general. I think that they are so lovely, and I think that maybe there's this, whether it's parental pressure or societal pressure, sometimes people really do, and they have told me this, feel pressured to invite hundreds of people to their wedding. A lot of these people, they don't even know. And I think that especially COVID has shown us that smaller weddings can be just as fun, just as amazing, and just as lovely as larger weddings. So my wedding was about 53 guests and then my husband and myself, so like 55 people. I was worried initially that it was going to feel too small or sad, but it did not at all. I think if you have the right reception ceremony layout and you have enough things to do, then it is not going to feel sad or lame or tiny or pitiful or whatever negative word people might have thought of. It is going to feel intimate and very special. So one of the things that I love most about smaller weddings is that it allows the couple to actually spend quality one-on-one time with every guest. It is much easier to do this with 20, 30, 40, even 50, 60 people as opposed to 150, 200 people plus. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with large weddings, but I'm saying that I would love to see smaller weddings become like the norm moving forward. I like shooting them more because I also think that they're less stressful. It's also easier for me to make sure that I have captured, if not every single guest, almost every single guest at the wedding. A 200-person plus wedding, I cannot guarantee I'm going to photograph everybody there. Even with a second photographer, it's just so difficult. But I also think that the wedding is a lot easier, like in the way that it flows, because if you are trying to move 250 people from one space to the next space, it's going to take a lot longer. People are lingering, whereas if you have 50 or 60, it is so much more manageable. So for the flow of the day from event to event, it is a much smoother process. One major thing that I love about smaller weddings, so smaller weddings meaning smaller guest count, is that your budget can stretch much farther. So let's just pop a random number. Let's just say 50,000. That is actually above the average wedding, but it's just an easy flat number. So if you have a $50,000 wedding budget and you have 200 guests and you're going to have so many tables, all of your decor budget that you have set is getting spread across more tables, more places. Now, if we shrink that down to a 50-person wedding, holy smokes, are you gonna get a lot more bang for your buck. Each table's flower arrangements is gonna go from something really teeny tiny and small to like big and like grand and beautiful, or your head table. Like, you can do more with your budget when there's fewer tables to deal with. So that is one really cool thing that I like to encourage my couples, is like the smaller your budget, either the more money you can save or the more impact that budget is going to have. So a table centerpiece on a 200-person wedding is going to look very different than a centerpiece on a 50-person wedding. Now, some people don't care about that whatsoever, but if that's something that is important to you, is having a lot of decor, the less people you have, the more your budget's going to stretch. The next trend I want to see couples really embracing is color. Color, color, color. We have had years of ivory green and sometimes pops of blush or gold weddings, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's super beautiful. It's what the couples wanted. But we've had so many years of that. I and so many of my vendor friends are so ready for people to embrace color. And I wonder if people fear adding color to their weddings because they think that it won't be timeless. People get really hung up on making sure their wedding is timeless, and maybe it's because we've seen so many bad, cringy 80s fashion moves and 80s weddings with like huge, crazy, awful puff sleeves and like, oh, just so much craziness. And my mom's wedding was like this, okay? And even she now is like, oh my God, we like went too crazy. I think maybe people fear that their wedding, if they use color, is going to be seen as dated as something like those 80s puffy sleeve bridesmaids dresses. And I really don't think that it is. You can take almost any color, not every color, but you can take almost any color and make it into a sophisticated palette that when you look back decades later, it's not going to look dated, but it is going to look like you and your personality. If you were scared of embracing color and you just chose an ivory green, one of the most classic, I don't mean basic in a wrong way, but one of those basic color palettes, if you look back on that in decades and you think, oh, I did that to be timeless and yeah, it has held up, but it wasn't me, it wasn't what we wanted to do, then that is why you've got to embrace color. If you simply love a basic color palette, that's fine, but I wanna see bolder colors. I wanna see like ombre color palettes. I want people to embrace multiple colors, not just one small pop of color. That's just what I want to see. And I know a lot of the blogs and magazines and vendors, we are just craving that life and that boldness and that joy that color brings. So I'm hoping that weddings this year have more color. If you were wondering, well, how can I work color and I don't even know where to start? One small tip I have for you is to look and see what your local seasonal flowers would be at that time and look at those colors and design your wedding around that. If you can use in-season local flowers, maybe even wildflowers in your wedding from your wedding city, that is really cool, and that's got a special story to it that would be extremely interesting for other brides to read and get inspired by. Now my next tip is going to be personalizing your decor. So this kind of goes hand in hand with color and making sure you do what you want. With decor, I see a lot of weddings where they just look pretty. Okay, they're beautiful, they're so pretty, but I don't see anything of the couple in the wedding. Not that you have to see the couple's personality in the wedding, but I think it is really awesome when you do, because then it's not just another wedding with money thrown at it, decorated in a certain color palette, and that's that. It is you. It tells a story of who you are. So for example, my husband and I met online, and one of the things in his profile said that he liked making smoothies. So we were messaging, he hadn't responded back to me, and I was like, ugh, how do I get him to respond to me in a natural way that doesn't seem like I've double messaged him? And so I thought he likes smoothies. Let me tell him I'm gonna make smoothies. So I messaged David and I said, hey David, I'm gonna be making some smoothies this weekend. Like, do you have any favorite recipes that you like? And he responded to me, and that got the conversation going again. And so my wedding planner for our wedding came up with an escort card display that said smooth moves, meaning me messaging David. I never made the smoothie, by the way. So that was why it was a smooth move. And then we had blenders with fruits put in them, and then all of the guest names were calligraphied on fruits. They were actually not real fruits, so we got to keep some of them, which was really fun. But that is a way that we personalize the wedding to make sense for our history, and stuff like that is really cool. I love when couples embrace their personalities. It can be how they met, what they like to do, parts of their history, maybe their pets, anything that is you. I mean, I thought that I was super boring because I was like, I don't really do anything. Like I told my wedding planner, I said, unless you can come up with something from, I don't know, Netflix or Cats, there's nothing that I have to offer. But she dug deep into our history and she found that. So for us, that was really cool to have those personalized touches. And then there was fruit on all of our wedding tables. And so it further carried that theme throughout our decor. So again, personalizing decor, making it fit the couple and not just being pretty for the sake of being pretty, unless that's what you want. But I encourage you guys to make your wedding you. It will be really cool for guests to see, and they'll just feel like it was a very unique, memorable event. The next thing I want to see are mix matched bridesmaids dresses. I have an entire video on this that you guys can go watch, but I really love the way it looks when the bridesmaids are all in different dresses. I think that is so modern, contemporary, fresh, and dynamic, and much more interesting to look at than if everybody's in the same dress with the same silhouette and neckline, which there's nothing wrong with that. So if you're planning on doing that, please don't be upset, but I simply want to see more mix match bridesmaids dresses. And if you're wondering how to make that work without it being awful, what you should do is you should send your bridesmaids your color palette, your design board, whatever, and say, pick a dress that fits this, make sure it's long or it's short, whatever, set the length for them so that you don't have a variety of lengths. That can look a little weird. If it's midi and long, that's fine, or if it's midi and cocktail, that's okay, but I think it looks a little strange in pictures when Some people in the bridal party are in like short cocktail dresses and the others are in long. That's not my favorite thing. There's nothing wrong with it, but from a photography perspective, I think that the same length or similar length is always a little bit more pleasing to the eye. But essentially give them your mood board, give them the length, and then say find, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 options and email them to me and I'll like just pick. So you're letting them go out and find their dresses, and I think that that's a really respectful thing to do because everybody has different body types, everybody has different budgets, and so you are being more mindful of that, whether intentionally or not, when you are giving them a choice of what dress to wear. So that is a really kind thing to do. I think it's a more modern take on things because maybe somebody can't or doesn't want to spend $150 on this like fuchsia dress that you want them to wear. And I know it's your wedding, but again, I think that we're coming into times where people are more so realizing that comfort of your friends is very important, and some people simply don't feel comfortable in certain silhouettes or maybe certain colors, and so I think that it is very kind to give them the choice, but then you have the final approval, so you still like have some control in there. You're still making sure everything looks cohesive, but you are giving them that choice to choose something that they feel will be flattering and comfortable for them. And my last tip is Sunday weddings. I would love to see more Sunday weddings, and I think that it will naturally happen because there's not as much availability for Saturday weddings like left probably anywhere in the world, because all of the 2019 couples moved into 2020 and then all of the original 2020 couples are here too. So we almost have double the weddings spread out through this year that we would normally, and so people are choosing different days than Saturdays to get married. And if you're worried that a Sunday wedding won't be as good, won't be as great, whatever. I had a Sunday wedding. I was originally worried about that. We chose Sunday because it was far more affordable for our venue, and we would not have been able to get married at our venue had we chosen a Saturday. And I was worried that it would be weird, but honestly, I've said this before, Sunday weddings are essentially the same thing as Saturdays in terms of the guests. So for a Saturday wedding, your out-of-town guests, they've probably got to take Friday off of work, and then they sleep in Sunday, go home Sunday. For a Sunday wedding, they are only taking off Monday from work. So it's basically the same thing. It's just shifting Friday to the Monday. And so it's not really that different. And a lot of venues, probably not other vendors, but venues might, maybe not. So again, don't be afraid to choose a Sunday. If you are choosing a weekday, so like Monday to Friday, I would not recommend that if you have multiple venue locations because of traffic. I've had some Friday weddings where I spent up to an hour total in the car, and that is an hour of your vendor's time that you're not having them utilize their actual services. So if you are choosing a weekday wedding, I would strongly suggest that you try to limit your venue locations. So if you've got a hotel in the venue, make them really close, and probably would not suggest having a hotel, then a church, then a different reception venue, then a hotel, or the hotel, church, then back to the hotel if you have far distances to travel, because you don't want your vendors to be really spending that valuable time that you've paid for in the car for a long time because of traffic. So that is one thing to be mindful of for weekday weddings. But again, I want to see more Sunday weddings. I think they're awesome. Go for it. But anyways, those are my 5 trends that I hope to see for 2021 and probably now at this point 2022 weddings. If there's things that you guys are curious about seeing or you want to see more, leave them in the comments. I would love to know what you hope to see out of weddings this year, and leave a like and subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!